The Science of Virtues project is an attempt to bring together scholars from a variety of disciplines to explore the question of virtue or the virtues. And we also understand by science, an organized body of knowledge that has some coherence. So it doesn't mean that everything about virtue can somehow be tested in a laboratory, but rather it passes certain tests of coherence and logic, makes sense, if you will, that there's data to support certain kinds of conclusions.
We have winnowed out of over 700 initial letters of interest, 40 projects that have been proposed, and from those 40 projects we're going to decide on about 20 projects that will receive funding from a pool of $3 million.
Well, one of our goals is not just to make awards, but to actually get a wide academic and cultural discussion going. So the discussion that emerges between the different investigators is almost as important as their individual research.
A goal of the Science of Virtues project is to try to jumpstart a new field of inquiry.
And the Templeton Foundation is very interested in pushing the limits of science, using science to explore topics that haven't traditionally been thought of as scientific. One of the nice things about working with the University of Chicago is the willingness of the scholars here to think outside of conventional modes of thinking. Certainly the type of conference that we've seen here in the last 2 days exemplified this. Typically, scholars don't come together to share ideas in the context of a competition, and here they did just that.
I was reminded in the session of Sir John Templeton's quote that is often remembered, which is, how little we know, how eager to learn. And I, on a personal level, just had the deep sense of what a pleasure it would be to learn from people who are so deeply formed in a discipline that I only know at a very surface level, and their understanding can inform my work and make it much more precise, and then come up with, at the end, interpretations and inferences that are really sound.
Well, over the course of the day today at the conference, we've seen a pretty broad range of different sorts of projects that go from economics to philosophy to neuroscience. And one example that I was struck by is a combination of a philosopher, psychologist, and economist studying the problem of self-control.
So economists are interested in preference for long-term gain over short-term gain. Psychologists are interested in a disposition to resist impulses in favor of pursuing goals that are important to the agent. And philosophy is interested in a rational capacity to resist impulses in favor of pursuing goals that are correctly important to the agent.
There were others that had to do with cross-cultural notions of virtue. Is there some convergence so that all these different societies that the anthropologists go to, they can identify something as virtue that in many respects seems a lot like virtue in a very different culture, and so on? Or are there great divergences between understandings of virtue so that we're struck by the differences rather than the commonalities?
As anthropologists, we're particularly interested in studying cross-cultural patterns in belief and practice. And in this case, we seek to establish which character traits and habits are regarded as intrinsically virtuous in many societies, many different ethical traditions, and which ones are more unique or historically specific.
And my project, which is called the Project on the Good Physician, is a project to develop the first longitudinal study of the moral and professional formation of physicians throughout the course of medical training. The medical training experience, many have noted, has both an explicit curriculum, which is what we tell people that we want them to be, but it also has a very powerful implicit curriculum or hidden curriculum, which is what people get feedback about as they go through training that drives them, the message they get about what you really need to be if you're to meet everyone's expectations. Now, we hope that that information will be turned around in a way that could lead to a kind of a reformation of the medical training experience based on this sort of data that will, we hope, help us better be able to train and form good physicians.
In trying to make final decisions about the projects that will get funded, the Council is going to discuss a number of things that we've seen today and a number of aspects of the projects that have been submitted. The projects have all been reviewed by Council members and outside reviewers, and we have those reviews available to us. And what we're going to be looking for in general terms is a kind of distribution and diversity of approaches to thinking about the problem of virtues systematically, scientifically.